Revealed, 7 spine-chilling Wendigo encounters in the sinister, haunted depths of forbidden woods. As the bitter winter winds howl through the small Midwest town of Wintersville, the lore of the forbidden woods tightens its grip around the hearts of the townsfolk. Mothers clutch their children tighter at night, while fathers cast nervous glances toward the snow-capped treetops. Those who dared venture nearby speak in hushed tones about the Wendigo, a spirit so hungry, it devours not just flesh but hope itself. Locals whisper of shadowy figures seen flitting through the trees, of pets vanishing without a trace, and the bone-chilling howls that pierce the silence like a knife. For Lisa, a single mother scraping by in this struggling town, the cold months stretch endlessly. By day, she handles the greasy dishes at the diner, laughter and lively chatter muffled beneath the weight of her worries, bills piling up, her boys, Jake and Max, left to navigate their own world while she fights the grind. The diner, with its flickering neon lights, is a dark fortress where she watches life pass her by. At night, she worries as they sleep, wondering if she has kept them safe within the walls of their small home. Then came the night she drove home, the clean windshields barely cutting through the murk of an unsettling fog that had settled like a shroud over the landscape. Shadows danced just beyond the tree line, taunting the edges of her vision. The whispers of missing pets and the cautious glances from neighbors thunderously echoed in her mind. Was it all just tales spun from desperation? Or was there something sinister lurking just outside her world? No sooner had she settled her boys into bed than the town erupted in chaos. Mrs. Hartman, the elderly neighbor who had once warned Lisa of the dangers beyond the woods, vanished without a trace. Fear twisted around Lisa's heart as the boys, once vibrant and wild, began to retreat into silence, sharing secretive conversations she didn't dare interrupt. A brutal blizzard swept through, plunging Wintersville into a cocoon of blinding snow. The darkness suffocated any remnants of normalcy. Panic surged in Lisa when she realized Jake and Max, once nestled under warm blankets, were now gone. The cold sank deep into her bones as she called their names, her voice swallowed by the howling wind. Each step into that pristine white felt like a descent into madness, the shadows lurking between the trees growing thicker, the air colder. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The crunch of snow beneath her feet was drowned out by something else, the unmistakable sound of movement. Lisa froze, her heart pounding, dread coiling in her stomach. She sensed eyes on her, hidden within the gnarled branches. The wind screamed through the forest, whispering secrets of betrayal and despair. The realization crashed over her like a tidal wave. It wasn't just the Wendigo lurking for her boys, it was the shadow of her own community, the neighbors she never suspected. Each rustle in the leaves, each branch cracking underfoot, seemed to thrum with a dark hunger that felt all too familiar. A bone-chilling cry echoed in the night, a voice that could only belong to Jake. Her heart raced. Was she running toward him? Or deeper into a trap laid by something malevolent that knew exactly how to prey upon her fears? The shadows deepened around her, whispering promises of despair as she plunged farther into the forbidden woods, unaware of the horror still unfurling at her back. The woods swallowed her whole. Each step pulled Lisa deeper into an icy abyss, her breath billowing out in frantic clouds. The moonlight barely breached the thick canopy, casting ghostly shadows that swirled around her like anxious spirits. She struggled to discern her surroundings, every twist and turn of the winding path leading her further from safety and closer to the unknown. "Jake!" She called again, her voice trembling. She paused, scanning the darkness, hoping for a response. Silence wrapped around her, suffocating and heavy, save for the incessant rustle of wind threaded with something else, something aggressive, something alive. Her heart sputtered as if it could feel the forest's agonizing hunger, its primal thirst for warmth and life. A flicker of movement drew her attention, a brief flash of white darting between the trees, faint against the backdrop of black. "Max?" Her plea felt weak, swallowed by the relentless night. But the creature flitted out of sight before she could take another breath. Panic tightened its grip. She took a step forward, but stopped dead as a low growl reverberated from deep within the woods. It slithered through the air like a promise of death. Lisa's heart raced, primal fear igniting her limbs. What if it wasn't just her children lost in the forest? What if she was walking into a trap that the Wendigo had laid with insidious precision? A distant cry echoed again, sharper this time, definite. "Mom!" It was Jake. She sprinted toward the sound, the snow crunching beneath her feet, loud against the quiet terror. "I'm coming." The wind whipped around her as if trying to deter her, to keep her trapped in its endless embrace. Each gust sounded like a warning, tangled with a suffocating despair that pressed against her chest. Suddenly, a figure broke through the thick fog, a dark silhouette with limbs unnaturally elongated. Shadows dripped from its form like liquid darkness, pooling at its feet, soaking into the snow. Lisa stumbled back, her breath hitching, eyes wide in horror. The tales had been true. The Wendigo, gaunt and ravenous, stood before her, its mouth stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth glistening with hunger. "Run!" The cry split the night, piercing through her shock just as the creature lunged, its eyes burning with an insatiable thirst for suffering. Lisa tore herself from the ground, feet pounding against the hard snow as she veered off the path, adrenaline overriding her instinct for self-preservation. Each desperate stride felt heavy, the forest seeming to conspire against her with branches that clawed at her clothes and whispered taunts in the icy air. She could hear the Wendigo crashing through the underbrush behind her, its bellowing growl resonating with the fury of the storm that had consumed Wintersville. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, another voice chimed into the fray, a familiar, frightened call amidst the chaos. "Mom! Help us! Max!" The urgency gripped her heart, driving her forward again. She raced towards the sound with reckless speed, but as she advanced, the howls of the Wendigo grew louder, weaving dangerously close behind her, a reminder that she was not alone in the depths of the forbidden woods. The trees began to thin, an eerie memory of warmth seeping through as Lisa stumbled into a small clearing. It was empty. No Jake, no Max. Frantically, she swung around, the shadows dancing around her, mocking her helplessness. Then, at the edge of the clearing, something stirred, a flicker of movement she shouldn't have seen. Was it them? Or was it the Wendigo, using her fear against her? The darkness of the woods pulsated around Lisa, and just as she took a step forward to see, the crack of a branch echoed, sharp and low. Something, or someone, was coming for her. Heart pounding, she stood frozen in place, unable to distinguish friend from foe. In that moment, as the night enveloped her, the forest chose its next victim. Before the nightmare could unfold further, she heard the low rumble of laughter echoing from all around, distorting the air with an unfamiliar chill. Could there be more than just the Wendigo out here? In that desperate moment of the unknown, error settled deep within her soul. A path carved into darkness lay waiting, and she would soon have to decide, run towards the whispers or embrace the haunting silence that consumed her. What she didn't know was that the Wendigo was not her only enemy. Lisa felt the laughter wrap around her like a serpentine vine, curling in tight until she could barely breathe. The eerie sound reverberated through the forest, rising and falling like a mischievous breeze dancing among the branches. Panic clawed at her throat, and she blinked hard, trying to force the shadows into discernible shapes. But they never quite settled, always shifting, ever hungry. Then came another sound, a soft, rustling whisper. Just beyond the bramble, half hidden beneath a twisted root, a figure flickered into view. It was small, a child, but its face was hidden beneath a cowl of darkness. "Mom?" The voice was too high, disjointed, as if it belonged to something other than her son. "Max?" Lisa stepped forward despite her instinct screaming at her to stay back. The figure swayed before her, and for an awful moment, she felt the weight of a sinister gaze locking onto her. She shook her head to clear the fog of dread that surrounded her. "Come closer," it urged, the laughter from earlier seeping back into its voice, a playful taunt camouflaged in innocence. "No. Get away from her." Another voice cried out, this time Jake's, desperate and laden with fear. Lisa's heart surged with a flicker of hope. "Jake?" she shouted, her voice breaking through the frantic shadows. "Where are you?" The figure shuddered, its shape simply too wrong, bending at impossible angles before it fell into darkness again. Lisa's grip on reason slipped as she turned, straining to locate her other son. From deeper within the woods, a resounding crash echoed, a rusty growl that seemed to vibrate through her bones. The Wendigo was close, its presence like a storm gathering, threatening to boil over. "Mom!" Jake's voice came again, closer now, or was it? Each plea ricocheted off the trees, tricking her ears, leading her away from where the source really lay. "I'm coming, hold on," she yelled back. Sweat cascaded down her back, eyes wild as she clutched at her somber resolve. With trembling feet, she veered away from the shadowed figure, following voices that twisted into deceptive calls. The temperature dropped even further as she plunged back into the trees. With every passing breath, her fears morphed into sharp, jagged shapes, her eyes darting about, terrified of the clasping darkness. Then, as she rounded a cluster of ancient pines, Lisa saw them, Jake and Max, standing frozen as if caught by an unseen force. They appeared hazy, almost spectral, their outlines wavering with the rising mist that descended from the ground. She dashed forward, nearly losing her footing. "Boys!" she cried, reaching for them. But before she could touch them, a hand reached out from the woods beside her, fingers skeletal, grasping for her. "Help us!" And then a muffled sob echoed out from the shadows, a deeper voice, heavy with despair. It sounded like Jake, but it felt wrong, a cruel mirage conjured by the forest's hunger. Tears were streaming down her face now, a rage igniting in the pit of her stomach. The forest was playing tricks on her. "Get away from them!" she screamed. Without thinking, she charged towards the boys, wielding desperation like a shield. As she neared, they shuddered violently, their faces twisted into expressions of terror. "Mom!" They called her name like a spell, the voice unmoving, echoing through the air, but the Wendigo howled nearby, a furious bellow that filled her with icy dread. She turned swiftly, seizing the moment to reach her sons. "Just take my hand, I promise I will." The ground beneath her erupted with cracking ice, snow swirling upwards in a frenzy. Shadows danced fervently, the haunting laughter crescendoing around them as if the woods were alive and too eager for her to join their macabre symphony. As hope slipped from her grasp, she felt a clawing certainty, the forest wanted them all. The Wendigo craved their souls, echoed their fears, and fed on their despair. Lisa's breath hitched as she recognized the impossibility of her situation. If she didn't act now, they wouldn't just be lost. They'd be consumed. From above, echoes of distorted laughter filled her mind. "Join us," they seemed to chant, weaving a dark melody that threatened to pull her under. Just then, through the chaos, she caught sight of something beyond the boys, back toward the heart of the woods. A flicker of genuine hope, a way out, but it beckoned from the very shadows she feared. Would she forsake her children for a chance at survival? Or would she plunge fully into the darkness, risking everything to save them? As the Wendigo's growl vibrated against her skin, time slipped away, and one question remained: would they escape the clutches of the woods, or were they destined to join the forest's eternal nightmare? Lisa's heart raced as the shadows beckoned her, twisting like 1,000 tiny serpents. This was no ordinary forest, it was a realm of malice and trickery. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the choking whispers curling around her like smoke. The boys, her precious boys, stood mere paces away, yet they felt so distant, lost in the mist that swirled like a living thing. "Jake! Max!" she shouted once more, desperation tearing at her voice. They swayed, their bodies caught between this world and something darker, something that wanted to claim them. Lisa could feel it, creeping around the edges of her mind, playing tricks, wrapping around her like a vice. "Don't move," she ordered, her voice barely steady. "I'm coming to you." Every instinct screamed at her to run, to pull herself from this nightmare, but the urge to reach her sons anchored her. The Wendigo's presence loomed closer, a freezing wind whispering promises of despair. Shadows thickened behind her, tendrils of darkness coiling around her ankles as she stepped forward. With each movement, it felt as if the forest conspired against her, tipping the balance further toward helplessness. Suddenly, another crash reverberated from deeper within the woods, followed by a slithering rustle that made her skin crawl. The sound was punctuated by the haunting laughter that no longer felt playful, but sinister. "Mom!" Jake cried out again, and with it came the unmistakable echo of pain. It ignited a fierce rage within her, the kind sharpened by fear. She wouldn't lose them, not again. "Just stay there. I'm right here." Lisa's voice trembled as she threaded her way through the frozen ironwood trees. She could feel them closing in, watchful eyes hidden in the dark. Mom Max's voice wavered, fading like a string cut loose. Panic surged through her veins. She pressed on, each step was a battle against the weight of despair. In the distance, beneath the laughter, she could hear another sound, a low, monstrous growl, reverberating through the earth and into her bones. The Wendigo was close. It was hungry, and it wouldn't wait. Lisa forced her breath into control, trembling hands reaching out as she inched closer to the boys. "I can see you. I'm almost there." She was nearly there, but the forest seemed to shift, pulling the boys further away just as she extended her fingers toward them. Cold crawled along her spine as she spotted something glimmering in the corner of her eye, golden eyes peering at her from the shadows, gleaming like polished stones. They were filled with malice, with an intelligence that was not human. They belonged to the Wendigo, watching her unravel. "Run!" Jake suddenly screamed, breaking the trance that had her shackled. But how? The forest writhed, a bloated mass of branches and thorns that encircled her. She turned sharply, adrenaline surging as she caught a glimpse of movement. Shadows pooled and faded, revealing a fleeting glimmer of something white, maybe a path. Or was it just another trick? She didn't care anymore. Hope burned bright and wild, she had to take it. "Over here!" she yelled, scrambling toward the faint light. But the laughter shrieked louder, mocking her bravery. Terrifying fingers grasped at her mind, each laugh puncturing her resolve. The boys' figures flickered, rippling like water, a mirage against the stark reality of the forest's darkness. "Stay close!" she shouted again. "I want to let you go." But then silence. A heavy quiet filled the space left by their voices, replaced by the rumbling growl rising from the bowels of the earth. The Wendigo was starving. "Mom, save us!" a whisper caressed her ear, all tenderness and deception. She turned, footsteps broke through the underbrush behind her. It was too much. Too fast. The forest twisted, bending space and time until nothing made sense anymore. Fear fused with rage. "I'm coming!" she screamed again, though doubt seeped in. Would she be able to reach them before the darkness took them too? With a final desperate lunge, she kicked against the ground, barreling toward the source of the fleeting light. Would her sacrifice be enough? The Wendigo's bellow shook the forest, and as she plunged deeper into the light, one final breath escaped her lips. "No, please, not like this." And as she fell into the light, a chilling question slithered through her mind. What awaited them on the other side of darkness, and would it be salvation or doom? Lisa tumbled through the bright light, the harsh brightness swallowing her whole. It was as if she had jumped into a pool of molten sunlight, yet the heat was absent, replaced by an eerie chill that settled deep in her bones. She landed hard, gasping for breath on a damp forest floor, but this was not where she expected to be. The mist that had haunted her before was still here, swirling lazily at the edges of her vision. It clung to the thick trees surrounding her, whispering secrets she dared not listen to. She scrambled up, both relief and dread swelling inside her. "Jake! Max!" Her voice rang through the woods, but it felt like a stone thrown into an ocean sinking, fading. Then she heard it. A soft rustle behind her. Lisa spun around. Panic clawed at her throat as shadows danced mockingly in the corners of her vision. The Wendigo might have followed her here. It felt close, close enough for her to smell the decay that hung in the air, thick and nauseating. She took a step back, her heart hammering against her ribcage, echoing in her ears louder than any growl. "Mom" was the soft, wretched sound that grasped her attention next, but it wasn't coming from the boys. The voice was raw, thin, dripping with despair. It scratched along her spine, a cold reminder that danger was not far behind. The dense fog shifted, revealing glimpses of something like her sons. Their faces flickered through the mist, their features ghostly and distorted. "Help us please," they moaned, the sound gut-wrenching. Instinct pushed her forward, but rationality pulled her back. She had to be careful. This could be another cruel trick. "Stay with me. I'm here," she shouted desperately, her throat raw. The image of their faces was disintegrating, melting into the haze. She couldn't let their pleas take her under like quicksand. Just when she turned away, ready to follow her instincts, she heard that chorus of laughter again, the chilling delight of the shadows. Each laugh echoed around her, bending the sound in a way that sent ice trailing down her spine. It was as if she had stumbled into a twisted carnival, a place of perverse joy masked by gloomy terror. "Mom!" Came another wail, closer this time. But was it really one of them? Fear weighed like lead in her stomach as uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Suddenly, a shadow lunged fast, too fast, breaking through the haze. Lisa's instincts kicked in. She dove sideways, just as horrific claws slashed through the air where she had been standing. The Wendigo emerged, all sinewy limbs and grotesque features that seemed to stretch and bend like a sick nightmare. Its eyes glowed, eager and hungry, and its presence radiated an aura of despair that made Lisa's heart freeze. With every ounce of strength, she scrambled to her feet, sprinting deeper into the woods, instinct sharpening her focus. "I'm coming!" she screamed, though it felt like a feeble promise. The darkness closed in around her like a curtain, but the images of her boys flashed through her mind, fueling her resolve. She had to reach them. "Stay with me. Just stay," she shouted. But behind her, the Wendigo's growl rumbled, deep and resonant, threatening to shake her from her path. It was getting closer, and with every rush of the wind, she felt the mocking laughter grow louder. Then she spotted another light ahead, flickering with a fragile glow, illuminating a narrow path lined with twisted vines. Could this be a way out, or yet another trap? Doubt clawed at her mind, but as she glanced back one last time, dread gripped her heart. The Wendigo surged forward, rage pulsing through its form, eyes blazing with hunger. In that moment, hesitation faded. This was her chance. With everything she had, she sprinted toward the glimmering light, praying it was the salvation she needed. "Will you come back to me?" The chilling voice whispered through the trees, passing through her like a sharp cold wind. And then, just as she reached the threshold of the light, a horrifying thought surged forth. What if this was the end? What if the forest was alive and the light merely another deception? As she stepped forward, the light flickered ominously, and an icy chill enveloped her. Would she find her boys, or was she racing toward her own doom? Lisa stumbled into the light, exhilaration and dread mingling in her chest. It felt like diving into a pool of ice and fire. The glow pulsed, reshaping her surroundings, pushing the trees slightly away. But the euphoria shattered as the mist thickened again, swallowing her whole. "Jake! Max!" she shouted, straining to hear anything but the roar of her own heartbeat. The silence that answered was heavy, oppressive. Shadows shifted just beyond her reach, aware, waiting, and eager. Then, the laughter returned. This time, it was tinged with cruel malice, wrapping around her, leeching warmth from her skin. A voice echoed, mocking her, repeating her name, Lisa, Lisa, just above a frightened murmur. She turned, eyes darting. Nothing. Just the fog thickening, coiling like a serpent. Get away from them! She screamed, blood pounding in her ears as she took cautious steps toward the flickering flicker. Each crack of a twig snapped in the darkness felt like a countdown, a clock ticking away the moments before everything collapsed into chaos once more. The light expanded, revealing a small clearing filled with white, ghostly flowers. They shimmered like stars fallen from a distant sky, evoking an unlikely sense of safety. But as she peered closer, the edges appeared jagged, like teeth waiting to bite. She hesitated, her instincts screaming to turn and run. Yet what could she trust now? Suddenly, the flowers twisted. They rippled under the weight of unseen terror. Lisa staggered back. They weren't flowers at all. Faces, pale and anguished, erupted from the ground, mouths agape in silent screams, her boys. Their faces morphed, distorted with pain, and the truth ripped through her like a knife. This was a trap, a way to lure her in. No! No! Lisa screamed, scrambling back as the Wendigo-esque growl vibrated the air. The trees shuddered, yielding to its primal call. The laughter swelled, echoing amongst the skeletal trees, mocking her terror. She could feel its hunger rippling through the mist, razor-sharp tendrils creeping closer, desperation clawed at her thoughts, igniting her limbs. She had to escape. Had to survive. Shaking off the conjured images of her boys, she forced herself to breathe. There was another path in the shadows, a narrow trail that seemed to lead deeper into the forest. Stay back! She shouted at the voices and claws that threatened to tear her apart. She spun and darted to her right, just as the Wendigo lunged again. Its claws swiped through the air, barely missing her shoulder. She could feel the cold breath of death creeping up her spine. The trees loomed over her, twisting and shifting. The laughter faded, replaced by whispers that urged her forward. Come to us, we're waiting, it gnawed at her soul, as if the forest itself had eyes, hungry for her despair. Stumbling over roots and unforgiving soil, she tore through the darkness. Every heartbeat screamed in her ears, the echo of her own pulse drowning her thoughts. Would she find her sons? Or were they swallowed by this cursed landscape as she would soon be? Just then, an eerie glow emerged from the darkness ahead, the kind that felt just out of reach, yet unbearable to ignore. Could it be another trap? Another cruel game? With every ounce of her being, she ran towards it. And in that furious sprint, she sensed something stirring behind her, something that felt impossibly ominous. The Wendigo was close. Closer than ever. As she broke into the light, it flickered violently, and she was met not with warmth, but an excruciating chill. A vision formed, pulling her gaze, images of her sons, lost in the thickening shadows of despair, stuck in an eternal nightmare. What was happening to them? Then, the light flickered one last time, a bright flash illuminating a figure standing just behind her, eyes glinting with hunger. Was this forest even real? Or was it merely a mirage crafted by the Wendigo? Suddenly, the laughter returned, clawing at her sanity. Will you save them, Lisa? Or surrender to the darkness? The choice loomed: dive into the light or confront what lay behind her. The air crackled with tension, every moment swelling with dread. What would she choose? Only one path knew the answer. The Wendigo's breath chilled the air around Lisa, a reminder she was not alone. She could almost feel its hunger, a shadow looming in the corners of her mind. Panic ignited inside her, driving her toward the flickering light. The vision of her boys flashed in her memory, their laughter replaced by haunting cries. She had to make a choice: stay and confront the nightmare, or dash toward a potential refuge. Please, please, she murmured, the words barely escaping her lips. As she stepped closer to the light, it pulsed like a heartbeat, a promise of safety or destruction. Behind her, a rustle of leaves revealed the Wendigo prowling, its elongated limbs slinking through the darkness. Its eyes glinted, reflecting malice and hunger. "You can't run forever," Lisa the voice echoed, mocking her resolve. But she couldn't afford doubt. Her heart raced, drowning out everything but the primal urge to survive. With one last glance back, Lisa plunged into the light. The radiance engulfed her, blinding her for an instant. When her vision cleared, she found herself in a narrow chamber shrouded in a flickering glow. The walls were lined with skulls and bones, remnants of lost souls trapped in eternal torment. Despair clawed at her gut as she took in the surroundings. "No," she whispered, stepping back, but the echo of her words bounced off the walls, taunting her. "Jake! Max!" Frantically, she called out again, desperate for any sign of life. The air thickened with dread. Suddenly, a burst of laughter shattered the silence. It was different this time, tinged with sadness, a symphony of sorrow. Faces appeared in the walls, ghastly visages twisted in agony, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. They were the victims of the beast. And now, she felt their pain writhing within her. "Join us," Lisa the whispers urged, and Lisa felt their grief and fear seep into her bones. "We need you, you can't escape, no," she shouted, shaking her head violently, fighting against the shadows trying to pull her closer. The walls seemed alive, undulating as the faces begged for release. She blinked hard, focusing on their translucent eyes. Were they truly lost souls, or just illusions summoned by the Wendigo's curse? She stepped deeper into the chamber, heart pulsing wildly, pushing through the growing sense of despair. "I want to be one of you," she cried, willing herself past the temptation to give in. But the voices grew louder, a cacophony of despair drowning her reason. Suddenly, the light flickered violently again, dimming. Lisa spun, the realization that she could no longer rely on it dawning hard like a blow. The Wendigo-esque growl now filled the space, vibrating through her veins. It had followed her. It had been a part of the game since the very beginning. The laughter, once maddening, now shifted demanding, urging her to surrender. "You will fail, you cannot save them. Embrace the dark instead," Lisa gritted her teeth. "I want to let you take them," she screamed, as the shadows pressed in tighter. But with each step she took forward, the pressure mounted, pulling her in like a whirlpool of despair. A flash of hope jolted her. What if the light had not truly abandoned her? What if it was waiting for her to fight back? She focused, clenching her fists. "I am not afraid," she shouted, even as her voice trembled. Then, just when her resolve felt strongest, the oppressive darkness twisted into a horrifying form. The Wendigo materialized before her, eyes gleaming like daggers. "You think you can defy me?" it hissed, a smile creeping across its jagged face. "Then let us play." With a roar, it lunged, and Lisa barely dodged, adrenaline surging in her veins. Her instinct screamed, a primal urge to survive. But where was the exit? Where were her boys? In that moment of sheer terror, she realized she couldn't fight the Wendigo forever. The forest was an endless maze, perhaps orchestrated to keep her trapped. Desperation coursed through her as she scanned for something, anything that would lead her to Jake and Max. Then, she spotted a glimmer in the corner of her eye, a path, twisted and dark, veering off to the side. It whispered secrets she couldn't understand. The choice was clear. With a powerful burst of courage, she sprinted towards the path, the Wendigo hot on her heels, hungry for her fear. But what awaited her in that diverging darkness? Would it lead her to her sons or to her own demise? The shadows swallowed her whole as Lisa dashed down the twisted path, the air vibrating with the Wendigo's growl echoing behind her. Fear clawed at her sides, urging her to run faster, harder, and the chilling wind nipped at her skin like icy fangs. Tightening her grip around the fabric of her shirt, she fought against the suffocating dread. "I have to keep moving," she chanted silently, as if her breath could conjure the presence of her boys. With each step she took, the laughter of the lost souls from the skull-lined chamber faded, drowned out by the deep, resonant thuds of the Wendigo's pursuit. The trail twisted and turned, a living serpent made of darkness and despair, and shrouded her vision with an unsettling gloom. As she rounded a bend, her foot caught on a gnarled root, and she tumbled forward, colliding with the ground. Pain shot through her knees, but she scrambled back to her feet, too terrified to linger. Ahead, the darkness pulsed with an unnatural glow. Lisa hesitated for a heartbeat. Was it another trick of the Wendigo, or a sliver of salvation? She gritted her teeth and plunged forward. The light grew brighter, illuminating what appeared to be a clearing drenched in mist. In the center, an ancient tree towered, its bark cracked and twisted, a twisted guardian of this haunted place. Its branches reached up like skeletal fingers clawing for escape from the eternal darkness. Beneath it lay a set of bones, broken and scattered, a memory of another soul who had made a desperate choice. "Jake!" she called, the name torn from her throat, swallowed by the mist. Her voice echoed back, mocking her. Panic surged again. She needed to be brave, but fear pulsated through her veins. Suddenly, laughter erupted from the mouth of the shadows, an ungodly melody. It echoed through the trees, and it was unmistakably her children's voices, mingled with the Wendigo's cruel taunts. "Join us, Lisa! Join us!" they called, repeating the rhythm of her desperate solitude, blurring the lines between hope and horror. "No! You're not real!" Lisa screamed, feeling the heat of her anger dissipating her fear, momentarily. She stumbled toward the hollow base of the tree, desperately searching for something, anything that might offer a glimmer of hope. The tree trunk bore deep carvings, words burned in anguish, warnings from those who had come before. "Beware the darkness it follows." Then a figure stepped out from the shadows with a slow, ghostly grace. His features were ethereal, the skin too pale, eyes glistening with a knowledge that chilled her heart. It was a man, no, a spirit trapped between worlds, and he tilted his head, extending a hand. "You must listen at once." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. "You know how to save them, you know where they are." The spectre sighed, the whisper curling like smoke between them. "The path is treacherous, beyond the tree lies the source, but the Wendigo will not let you pass. It feeds on your fear, your doubt." Panic washed over her. Was this spirit a chance at saving her boys, or another trap devised by the Wendigo? The ground beneath her quaked, echoing thunder in her heart. "No!" she cried, glancing back, half expecting the Wendigo to burst forth from the shadows. But all she saw was swirling darkness and an emptiness that threatened her sanity. "Trust your instinct. The light will reveal the truth," he urged, his voice fading into a haunting melody. She hesitated, glancing at the gaping maw of the darkness ahead. What if she chose wrong? What if she turned back, and would always regret it? As the screams of the damned erupted around her, and the Wendigo's insatiable growl grew louder once more, the decision clamped around her throat like a noose. Clenching her fists tight with resolve, she turned to the tree. "What do I have to lose?" With that, she stepped through the mist, the shadows swirling like fierce waves, seeking to pull her back. But then her feet sank into the ground, an invisible force grabbing hold. Everywhere she looked, darkness encircled her. Would the light reveal her salvation, or was it another cruel joke? Was this the moment she would find her boys, or would she remain lost in the depths forever? The moment Lisa crossed into the mist, it felt as if the ground itself convulsed. The cold crept into her bones, wrapping around her heart like a vice, squeezing tightly. She stumbled, disoriented, as the world around her shifted and warped. A thin veil of fog clung to her legs like the grasp of hands long forgotten, desperate and yearning. "Jake!" she shouted again, her voice lost in the swirling shadows. Panic exploded in her chest as she spun around, looking for any sign of the spirit or the comforting glow. But everything was an endless cycle of black, pushing her further into despair. The Wendigo-esque growls morphed into a cacophony of voices, mocking, laughing. "You'll never find them. Stay with us. Each word struck her like a physical blow, washing over her like a cold wave, dragging her back into the depths. She pressed forward. Fierce bruises of fear formed in her stomach, each echo of the Wendigo solidifying the weight on her shoulders. But she had to focus. There had to be a way forward. Clenching her fists, she willed herself past the insinuating shadows that reached for her like icy fingers, past the malign laughs that slithered from the darkness. Then, unexpectedly, a flicker of light pierced through the mist ahead. Cautiously, she approached, every step feeling weighted as if the ground aimed to keep her still. The light pulsated rhythmically, drawing her in with magnetic pull. Inside, she could almost believe it was warmth, and escape from the chill gripping her teeth. The heart of the clearing throbbed with luminescence. As Lisa drew close, she noticed it was a pool of shimmering light, reflecting fragments of memories. She squinted, and in the rippling surface, faces blurred and blended, scenes of laughter, warmth, and love. There were her boys, playing together in a sunlit backyard, their faces radiant with joy. "Mom!" They smiled, reaching out, their little hands beckoning her. A raw ache bloomed in her chest, hope taking root, but beneath that, a thick, dark current persisted. Could it all be a trick of the Wendigo? Run to them. A voice, not the spectre-s but a new one, broke through the veil of doubt, clearer and more commanding. It echoed like thunder against the hollow tree, vibrating through her bones. Was it truly a source of safety? Her heart hammered loudly, adrenaline pricking at her skin. She stepped forward, drawn to the swirling images of her children. But the air thickened. Shadows darted in from the perimeter, clutching at her ankles, relentless, hungrily reminding her of the time she had wasted. "Mom, help us!" they urged, their voices morphing into cries soaked in fear. The laughter shifted, twisting into something sinister, underbelly dark, saturated with dread. "No! I can't lose you!" she screamed, feeling the weight of their desperation. The light flared and flickered, as if testing her resolve. Just then, a chilling sound pierced through the stalking growl of the Wendigo, slipping closer, hungry and poised to strike. Its breath rolled over her, cold and fetid. "Leave them. Come join us." It called in a voice that echoed her children's own, shifting into a twisted enigma of manipulation and torment. Torn between the cries of her boys and the suffocating darkness creeping ever nearer, Lisa felt her mind fray, edges unraveling like old fabric. In that moment of torment, her instincts screamed. Was there a way to navigate through this? Could she defy the darkness without losing herself? The light shimmered, just out of reach, and she felt a sudden rush of clarity. "I won't abandon them," she yelled defiantly, calling upon the deepest part of her heart. But the shadows shrieked in response, a gut-wrenching, twisting sound that sharpened into a wail, and the light dimmed, flickering as if in response to her words. Then, a bone-chilling roar erupted from the depths, slashing through the fog. It was closer, too close. With heart racing and presence of mind fading, Lisa moved toward the light, her last hope hanging by a thread. But as she lunged forward, she wondered, would it burn her like the flames of betrayal? Or would it free her from the shadows? The Wendigo was closing in. Would she find her boys, or would she step into the abyss? Lisa dove toward the shimmering light, every ounce of her being focused on the flickering memories of her children. The air crackled with tension, and the pull of despair clung to her like a dark shroud. Her breath came in frantic gasps as she pushed through the shadows, the Wendigo's growl a menacing reminder of the danger at her heels. "Mom, hurry!" The desperate voices of Jake and Max echoed in her mind, intertwining with the Wendigo's mocking laughter. She could feel it closing in, a chill creeping along her spine, its breath hot and rancid. The flickering light flared brighter, calling to her an inviting warmth amid the frost of terror. With every stride taken, the darkness writhed around her, malevolent tendrils reaching for her ankles. "Stay with us, Lisa," the forest whispered, a panic that clawed at her heart each time the wretched laughter rose. But she couldn't stop now, her boys were somewhere beyond the veil of shadows. No! Lisa screamed, grounding herself in the resolve that screamed through her veins. She pressed on, fueled by the unwavering love for her children. Each heartbeat resonated with hope as she lunged toward the glowing pool of light. As she reached the edge of the luminescence, she felt it wrap around her like a protective embrace, blinding her to the despair just beyond. Muffled cries came through the barrier, morphing from taunts into pleas for her help. "Mom! We're trapped!" The vision her heart craved bloomed before her. When she opened her eyes, the clearing unfolded, revealing a childish backyard, a sun-soaked paradise filled with delighted laughter. It was a moment frozen in time. Jake and Max raced around the towering tree, their faces lit with joy. A slice of happiness that felt so far removed from the shadows creeping just behind her at the edge of reality. "Jake! Max!" Lisa reached forward, her heart racing as they turned their heads, eyes wide with astonishment. "Mom!" they cried, their voices harmonizing, blending into a sound that tugged at her soul, urging her toward them. But then the ground trembled again, and the oppressive shadows returned. "Join us!" The Wendigo's growl tore through the scene, its words seeping into the air like poison. "She's choosing, children. She will forsake you." "No!" Lisa shouted, blinking away the haze of despair swirling around her. "I won't leave you." With renewed determination, she charged toward her sons, feeling the heat of the light push back the specter of the Wendigo. She didn't know if there was a path back to her children, but she had to believe. As she stepped further into the glowing embrace, the light expanded around her, illuminating the dark entities lurking nearby. Fear and desperation scrambled as the Wendigo let out a deafening roar, a howl that chilled her to the core. Yet, she held on to her boys, focusing on their faces, determined to break through the illusion that threatened to trap them all. "Please! Come back!" Their hands reached out, fingers brushing against the barrier of light, pulling her closer as darkness clawed at her edges. Lisa could feel the spaces between them closing, a deep-seated dread telling her time was running out. How long would the light hold against the Wendigo? Using every ounce of her strength, she pressed forward, heart driving her on in a fierce rush. Then, like breaking through the surface of water, the barrier shattered, light flooded her senses. She found herself engulfed in a whirlwind of warmth, and in the blink of an eye, she stood in the clearing with her children, feeling their warm hands entwined in hers. They were safe, but it wasn't over. At that very moment, the Wendigo roared with fury, its form twisting and writhing in the fading shadows, shrieking with anguish as it realized its grip had slipped. "Run!" Lisa urged, pulling her boys close. "We have to get out of here." Together, they sprinted back towards the path, the light swirling around them like a protective arm. The Wendigos screeching abated with every step they took away from the heart of the cursed woods. The trees seemed to part before them, the oppressive darkness retreating in the wake of unfurling dawn. A sense of freedom surged through Lisa, exponentially growing with every stride her boys took beside her. She felt lighter, rejuvenated, reminded that love had triumphed over the spectral horrors that once held them captive. In the distance, the first tendrils of morning light broke through the canopy, and as they reached the edge of the forest, the air shifted from bitter cold to warm embrace, sweet and comforting. They were free. As they stepped into the soft light, untouched by shadows, Lisa turned to her boys, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her face. She pulled them both into a tight hug, whispering promises of protection and love. "You're safe now. I've got you." "Mom," the Wendigo Jake started, but Max interrupted with wide eyes. "It's gone. We're home now." And indeed, they were. As the sun broke over the horizon, the sinister grasp of the forbidden woods faded into memory, a shadow that could no longer touch them. Lisa took a deep breath, her heart swelling with relief as she clutched her sons close. The darkness was behind them now, forever banished, but she vowed to hold dear the lessons learned from that harrowing night. The townsfolk could whisper tales of the Wendigo in the shadows of the woods, but not today. Today, they would forge a new story, one of resilience, love, and the strength found within. Hand in hand, the three of them walked back toward Wintersville, hearts full of hope, ready to embrace the beauty of a new dawn, and that was the day they began to heal. Now, before you go, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others discover these wild adventures. We expect to see you flooding the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic finale. You need to support the channel. This is the moment. Don't wait even one more second.